Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. My next guest is not only a mother with an autistic son, but she's also the producer and screenwriter of the movie Mountain Boy, a story of a young Emirates boy with autism who gets shunned by his father and goes off to live in the mountains to find his mother's family in Abu Dhabi. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about her. See you there.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Nancy Paton. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Thank you, Reed. It's so lovely to be on the show.
So why don't we start off with, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and we'll get going.
My name's Nancy. I'm a film producer or filmmaker, but in my last role, I was a film producer and writer of a feature film called Mountain Boy. I'm originally from Australia, but I currently live in Abu Dhabi. I've lived in the Middle East now for over 12 years. So I've been in the region. I've seen a lot of change over the last 13 years here. But in the last 7 years, been really prominent in the United Arab Emirates and filming local films, local stories, and really kind of exploring the culture and nature and how to bring that to life in films that I'm creating. So yeah, I'm
So,
also the president of Women of Film, and I do a lot with women as well and empowering women in the region as well.
all right. So let's talk a little bit about your movie, The Desert Boy.
Yes.
Um, it's about a boy who is autistic living in Dubai. What made you want to produce this film?
So basically, the film is based on a children's book series called The Boy Who Knew the Mountains by Dr. Zhelowski. And she wrote a series of three children's books because her son is autistic. And it's kind of based on like loosely on his experiences in the desert and in the mountains of the United Arab Emirates. And she's an archaeologist, so it's all about archaeology and fossils and this boy being ostracized from his village because he was different, and kind of saving a girl, and then kind of people realizing that he's got something important and special to give to the tribes and the people, and he reunites the people and brings them back. I mean, the reason I fell in love with the book is my son at the time was 3 years old, and it was just before the Special Olympics in Abu Dhabi, and they were doing book readings, and just kind of bringing awareness to autism and different conditions, and they were doing a book reading of this book in the school, and there's a scene where the boy puts his hands on his ears because he can't handle loud noises, loud sounds. And my son does that a lot, or did that a lot as a child. And everyone in the classroom just put their hands on their ears, and like all the moms just started crying because it was like the moms had been invited. And I was really just like, wow, such a simple story, but just really brought something very easy, but just showcased an understanding. Oh, that person is sensitive to sound. Maybe we should all be quiet. Maybe we should all change our way instead of asking that child to change, which is always something I struggled with. Because, with my son, we've always had to adjust things, but it's so important to realize actually, maybe it's us who's loud. Maybe it's us who's being insensitive. Maybe we should think differently. And so I stalked the author. I kind of, told her my crazy idea. I wanted to turn this into a feature film. And she finally agreed. And that's kind of how I got the option and then turned it into a feature film. And that was the start of the adventure of Mountain Boy.
Now, most people who do, we talked about this earlier, most people in the film industry, if they're trying to do something with autism, they don't know to hire someone who is autistic. But you told me you hired an autistic boy who never acted before. How did you go about the process of finding him?
So when I was talking with the author, originally she thought we were going to do an animation. And
Mm.
I'm not an animator, and I love live action films, and I love real stories, and specifically indie, independent films. So for me, I was like, no, we're going to do a real live family adventure story with real actors and real local actors. And we're going to have a boy who's autistic play the lead. And she loved that. She was like, oh my God, really? You think we can find someone? I'm like, because her son's also autistic. And as much as I would love her son to play the part, he is unable, he's autism, is on a different spectrum. We did need someone who could, speak and could follow lines and learn things. So, we were looking at a different part of the spectrum. But at the same time, we're also looking for an Emirati boy who speaks authentic Arabic Emirati, accent. So we were like, and she's like, well, I don't think we're ever going to find anyone because there's a misconception that Emiratis are very closed off and they don't want to, show their children. And, they would never allow a boy on autism to be in a film. And I was like, you know what? Let's just try. Let's just see. And we're going to go for it. And we persuaded the investors and they gave us a bit of a timeline to find someone. And if we weren't going to find them in this timeline, the show must go on and we must hire an actor. So we have lots of WhatsApp groups in the region with for autism families and parents. And there's a lot of schools for autism. So we wrote to all the schools and parents. We're doing auditions for children on the spectrum. We're looking for a boy between 10 and 15. We're doing auditions. We did an audition in every emirate. So in Fujairah, in Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. And thankfully, we're at the Rashid Center, which is a autistic school here that's actually originated in Boston. It's a really great center in Abu Dhabi, and it was our last audition day. And we originally had 9 actors coming in, and we got there in the morning, and there were only 2 coming in. I was like, oh no, we're never gonna find this boy. And so we were like really upset. And then that day we
Mhm.
had like 12 children come in and 12 families. And then we had families come in and say, look, we probably know our son's not going to be able to do this because he's unable, but we're really grateful that you're allowing him to even audition for this film because we can tell our friends that he's auditioned for a feature film. And it just was like, wow, that's like so powerful. Like I had one mother coming me saying, people never thought my son would do anything, achieve anything, and he's the one auditioning for a feature film. And it was just such a proud moment
Mhm.
to give even the opportunity to audition. And it was so great for the director and the other crew members to meet these families, to understand what it's like. And then the last child to walk in was this boy. And as soon as he walked into the door, we're like, oh, that's the mountain boy. Like we just knew. I mean, and we have a documentary that's the behind the scenes of how we found the boy. And you see, we have him on camera walking in and like, didn't want to talk to anyone, wanted his own space. But there was just something about him that was just so unique. And he came with his sister. And of course, they're very close and they auditioned together. And we hired both of them because they were so good together that we gave her the role of the supporting actress. So they were on set together. And I
Oh,
think that's something we also learned as filmmakers, for him to be comfortable on set with strangers, we needed his family on set. We needed them being in the film. They were in the film. They were so supportive. So we didn't just gain him, we gained his whole family, which is he's got 5 brothers and sisters, his mother and father. I mean, they were all on set. They were all in different parts of the film, helping him, but also having a great time. And so, that taught us as well. We're like, oh, he's coming out because, he's trusting us because his family's trusting us. His family's there, and it just sped up the process, and he just loosened up. And I mean, you've seen him; he shines on camera, and he's just brilliant. And he won now 2 Best Young Actor awards in a feature film, one at Chelsea Film Festival and one at the Five Continents Festival just now. So we're really proud that he's actually winning awards for Best Actor as well, which proves that an autistic boy on the spectrum is actually worth working with because they do win and they are fantastic to work with.
now you mentioned something earlier. You said that people didn't think he, certain autistic kids would be able to do anything. I mean, that's almost the case in society today, where people look at us and say, you're not going to be able to achieve anything because of your disability. Have you
Yes.
heard that? Have you dealt with that yourself with your own child, with people telling you your son's not going to be able to do anything because of his disability? And how did you handle that?
See, with my son, I mean, he's autism spectrum one, so ASD one, and he has when we noticed it as a child, and he's been we've had all the genetic tests, and we've done everything, and we've had just because I had people on my back for a lot actually, and I got to a point I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it all, and just I didn't think the need because we knew what he can and can't do. We weren't gonna pressure. He is amazing, and I would have I want him to stay the way he is because he's actually that's him, and he's just that's just how we know it. But yeah, of course he processes things slower at some things, but in other things he's so brilliant, and that what they say is slow processing for me is no, it's actually fantastic what comes out of it. It's just a different way of processing, and we've never had it to, and I've never allowed it to come into his world, and I don't allow it to even, it doesn't stop us from doing anything. It doesn't stop him from doing anything. We really try to, um, if he wants to do something, if it takes him longer, we wait and he does it as long as it takes him. I'm not going to say he can. If he wants to do it, then we're going to find a way to help him do it. And if he doesn't want to do it, then he doesn't want to do it. I'm not going to, he needs to be himself, and he's very aware of what he can and can't do, and the things that he can do are, he loves and he can do them, and that's like all of us, no one can do everything, and we know our strengths, um and yes, there were times when he was a child that, we had bullies, and there were things that I wish he had never experienced, but he just took it. I mean, as I said, he's taught us so much, and that's what's the brilliant. And so, sometimes I think the things that he's going through, because I think a certain way, I'm like, wow, this must affect him. But because he thinks differently, they're the things that he does that don't bother him. It's the other things that bother him.
Mhm.
So, you know, um, so yeah, I mean, I guess it happens in different scenarios, but I just don't have those people in my life, and I just don't have time for those people, to be honest. Like
Uh,
even when this film, when people said you can't get a boy on the spectrum, I was like, of course we can. I mean, there was no, I found teams that were willing to do that, and people that wanted to work with a child with autism, and that's the people I worked with. I wasn't going to work with people that thought of it as difficult. Like it wasn't, it was actually brilliant. So yeah, that's
what made you realize your son was autistic?
when we, very emotionally intelligent in that sense, emotionally aware of, um, the things that hurt him or the things he felt. I mean, sensory sensors, not liking to touch things, sounds, light, just those the few things there. But again, because he's so comfortable with us, we never, and we do put him in a lot of scenarios around different people, and we trust a lot of people, and we make sure that he learns how to deal with different people. But yeah, I guess when we would introduce him to new people, he, isn't great. He wasn't probably like other children that socialized. He didn't socialize the way other kids did his age. So he's considered a gifted child. So he's, in that sense that he loves science and maths, and in that sense but he can't read and write, but he thinks numbers, and he's got a different, once we realize his strengths, as I said, that's the things we really empower. And we really made sure we had friends around him that were able to let him be himself, that he trusts. Uh, yeah, so I mean, we noticed a few things, but I didn't ever see them as something I needed him to make an issue of, or that was never. I would never. We never tried to. We wanted him to learn, to be around kids, the kids to learn to be around him. There was never, and that's why I really love what the Special Olympics do, and unifying and allowing, as we said, even on the movie when we had, Nasser on the film, he was around so many different people of different walks of life, of different nationalities, of different jobs. And it wasn't that he changed, we all had to learn to change to understand him. And by doing so, he then was able to be himself. And, it's not, to stop him to be around people because he's autistic would be such a wrong thing. It's actually, you have to include them in things, different activities, different things. And, to make it, it's just part of life, right? Um, and we really proved that with Mountain Boy. And I'm just proud. And I really do hope more productions. Something we talked about earlier, Reed, was, when we see films in which you have a actor playing an autistic child, and you're like, okay, great. I understand that sometimes that must be possible. There's no other choice. But the thing is not only about the actor who's autistic being autistic, it's also the crew, the director, everyone then who's filming the film
Hmm.
learns to film differently. So the point of view of the filming and what you get on camera is different than a director directing an actor who's playing an autistic actor and they've done their research on autism. When you have an autistic actor who's actually autistic, you have to change your schedule. You have to change your timings because there's certain things he won't do or he will do spontaneously or he has to, and therefore we have to change our style. He doesn't like that. He wants to touch the sand for 20 minutes. And he does. In one of the scenes, he really enjoyed playing with the sand. And it was just so beautiful to watch him. So we filmed him. And it ended up being like 10 minutes of filming, which was meant to be a 10-second shot. But it was just such a lovely moment with him and the sand and the texture and the way he was observing and learning that we were like, wow, we would never look at the sand that way. So we filmed it. So, and that's so great for the crew and the cast that were working with him because then they're like, oh, well, maybe I won't say my line like that because he's not saying it like that. So maybe that line means something different to him. So let's say something different, so you change. And so that's, I think, as filmmakers, it's quite important. And that's why more films, when they are having someone with Down syndrome or they're having a character that has a neurodiversity of some sort, it's important to use a person who wants to be an actor, who is
Hmm.
that is neurodiverse, because they are going to give you something to the script and as I said, when you watch him on camera, he is just stunning because he's being himself. And it's way better than having an actor overact an autistic child. I mean, it would be just cringeworthy. And I just couldn't be a part of a project like that, to be honest.
Now, you said something very interesting early on. You said that the cast and the crew learned from the actor. And that is almost like that almost imitates life where, and I believe this is people need to learn from us because we're different than you. There's more neurotypicals out there than there are neurodiverse, but we're
Yeah,
becoming more and more, and people need to learn how we think, how we view the world, and to work with us instead of against us. Because
I, yeah.
because things move smoother if you work with and then against.
Exactly. And I think when you're telling a story, you want to kind of, when you're capturing it, you want to be able to see, encompass all feelings and thoughts or perspectives, right? So
Mhm.
the way we're kind of watching movies right now, sadly, and even for me as a woman, many movies are made by men, for men, about men, even on that side, right? So, and then you're doing a film about a woman, by a man who's never had a child, about a childbirth. You're like, well, actually, you're missing another concept. And then about a mother who has an autistic son, but it's a man who's never had children telling a story about a mother with an autistic son. It just, and so it's really important to include in either the writing part of the project, in the directing, the setup, the state, like the setup, even the scenes. Like when we were doing the art department, the art director sat down with the author. So the author of the book, who her son is now 17, she sat with the art department a lot because her son, the book, and she told them, no, this is how he would place objects. This is how he would set up his room. This is where, how he would actually, so when they started designing, sets, they were actually designing with her and the way her son and how she feels to make it again more authentic because they don't have anyone in their family that's autistic, and so, and as well, the mother of the actor, Nasser's mum, Hind, she was really involved as well with costume department, art department, because he doesn't like certain fabrics. He doesn't like to wear things. He doesn't, so having to make sure the clothing that he was wearing, otherwise having an actor having polyester because he's happy, but if it autistic, the fabrics are so important, the way they touch their fabrics, it would be something missed on camera if you had just an actor, and it's on such a,
Mhm.
maybe film directors and producers think it's such a minimal thing, but when you see it in the cinema, we're so, as audiences, aware when something's not authentic, we catch it. And if we know autistic people or people, neurodiverse people of any, we then feel this is you don't feel like, because you're not feeling through their eyes. And that's really quite sad because we're missing something there. And I'm really hoping there are more inclusivity in our industry on so many levels, because it proves it does work.
And one of the things I want to say is I love the fact that you hired a autistic boy because it makes it more, and you said this, it makes it more authentic. It makes it more real. People can relate. Families who watch this who have an autistic son can relate to how the kid goes through things, how he plays with the sand, how he fights with clothing because he doesn't like the touch of the feel. It's relatable to the community, and this is what's gonna catch the eye of the autism community is the fact that everything is relatable. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel overacted. And that's what I love is you're going for authenticity than fake.
Exactly. And look, as I said, with the original screenplay we had, it's changed. When we got on set, there were days where he was unable to do certain things and specifically say certain lines. We're like, okay, you know what? Let's not worry about that. That's not important. Actually, what's more important is him touching the sound. Like, I mean, yeah, it says in the script he has to do this, this, this. And yes, there were maybe 10 pages we had to cut out. But what we got that was different was actually, we were like, well, actually he would have not said that. We were actually forcing something that actually wasn't authentic for this situation and this scenario. And so, and also, as we said, the change happened not only because we had a crew of 230 people. So 200, and we all, as what I mean, we talk about is the musicians, which both the actor and the real boy that the book's based on, and the real Sahel, went to the orchestra, met with the orchestra, met with the composer that did the music for the film. And they, as the orchestra, they then were like, okay, there's real people involved on the spectrum on this. It's not just another film. It really, we made an impact on like 230 crew members to think to be more inclusive. So where we're making, it's not just making a film, but actually changing people's way, because it was 35 days of shooting and then 24 weeks of post-production. And every crew member that we met along the way met the boys, both the boys, met the mothers, all three of us, because we're like the three mothers who have children on the spectrum, and kind of were like, no, we're going to make this. We're going to do everything to do this. And they were like, no, this is actually important to be inclusive. If that hadn't been done, those 230 people who then told their families, and
Mhm.
then like, actually, let's think differently. Let's actually, and for us as mothers, we want people to understand it's important that you stop and think, if someone's acting differently, you might need to, you have to understand why, and take your time, and not just they're rude or they're not
Mhm.
listening, because my son's always considered rude or not listening or whatever. And I was like, no, he's actually so listening. He's so aware. He
Mhm.
knows more than, he already knows what you're going to say before you say it, because he's already feeling it. Um, but you don't know that because you've never allowed yourself to be around someone like that. So we have to put people into scenarios where they're made to be with people on the spectrum or of any neurodiversity, so that they start seeing it through their eyes. And that's how change really starts happening, I think, and inclusion really starts happening.
You mentioned something and it reminded me of a story. People don't realize that even if we're not looking at you, we're still hearing you.
Yeah.
And I had a guy who was a guest on my show who told me he gave a lecture on friendship and dating to a bunch of people at a community center where he is, and they were all autistic. And at the end, he walked over to the woman that sponsored it. And she's like, "How did it go?" And she's like, "It didn't. No one was looking, no one was listening." And she's like, "You're wrong. They may not be looking at you, but they heard every word you said and they loved everything."
Yeah, exactly.
People don't realize we may not look at you, but we are listening very intently.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter that they're still sitting there, like if NASA doesn't like something, he walks off. Like that's the fact. Like because I mean, Na in NASA's case, he's very blunt. People say it's blunt, but he just if he's engaged, if you give him the time and he's into it, he might not be looking at you, but if he's there, he wants to
Mhm.
be there. He is. But if you are not honest to him, he doesn't like liars. He knows straight away. He feels it and he senses it, and you're like, so he'll walk away. He's not going to take, and in NASA's scenario, and some of the crew at times were like, hang on, what's going on? I'm like, guys, you understand he needs you to be honest, to speak to him so that he because if you are, he's there. Don't treat him, you got to treat him like you treat everyone else, but also you have to be understanding that not like everyone else, because you probably to me you're going to lie to my face because I'm the producer and you want to look good around me. But around NASA, it's not about looking good. He wants you to be honest, and that
Mhm.
makes you look good for him, right? So in his spectrum, in the way he is on, and that's something the crew learned quite quickly. Like, oh, okay, and as soon as that happened, NASA was like, okay, and he stuck around, but there was times like, why is he gone? What have you guys done? What's and because of, again, I have a son who's similar to that, it was much easier for me to, work with NASA, where for the crew, it took some time of saying, okay, guys, this is when you're telling him things, you guys got to talk like this is how you got to explain things because
Mhm.
he respects you if you speak that way. And actually, I love that way of speaking. And they all got it, and then NASA was around. But I actually didn't tell you the funniest story about this was when the mother came for the audition with NASA, they thought he was coming for a short film. So they thought he was coming to do like a 4-day shoot. So, when he got the part, she's like, oh, great, we're going to come. And then I start telling her, it's going to be 35 days. So over 6 weeks. They're like, what? Oh no, no, he can't do this. We have school and work, and then I'm like, okay, I mean, this just like, and then the mom's like, no, of course he's gonna do this. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna take time off work. And they changed, like they got time off work. They all got school permission to let them off school. They moved cities for the whole time so they could film this. Um, so it just showed the power of parents. Like, he really wants to do this. We're going to support him, and how important good family is around. And that's what I'm so impressed by his family and their, the way you know, they have 6 children, by the way. So, I mean, and they
Wow.
have time for all their kids. And the way with Nasser, I mean, it's just, I mean, it's just, I have 3, but when I look at him, I'm like, wow, you are a super mom. And it shows through Nasser the way he is. No other boy could, I mean, he was the boy, he was the mountain boy because of his mother. She really prepared him, and I'm really grateful for her.
Now, what was it like filming this movie with this boy? There had to be ups and downs, but a lot of joy.
So much joy, and that's the thing. And when I say that's the kind of reality is, I mean, the joy was, I mean, when you see him, like by mid of the film, he's like, I'm an actor. Like he is now an actor in his head. Like he's learned everything of being on a film. By the end, he was directing the director and telling, no, you've already said cut, and we've already cut here, and we should be filming here. So he learned how to be on set. He got this amazing confidence of filming and being the mountain boy. Which again, as I said, was so authentic because when he met his grandfather on set, the actor playing the grandfather, he walked around behind scenes with the actor, thinking it's his well, not thinking, but he was treating him like a grandfather. So the whole time he was with him, and the actor was like, my God, I feel like this is my grandson. Like, he had this, they fell in love with each other as, you know, actors, but it was because he was just, he thought he was his grandfather, and he really believed, he gave him so much love as a grandson offset. So when they came on scene together, it was just so easy. There was no lean toward, like they didn't need to learn lines. They were flowing like they had been talking before they came on set. It was just a normal scene between a grandfather and a grandson with autism. And because Nasser was just I mean, just so in the moment, which was so beautiful. Right? And we had so many of these scenes where he was just so in the moment of being the character or being himself, should I say, because he loved playing this role. Like he loved being this role. I'm Mountain Boy. Like, so this, and that made us also happy. Yeah, and I said, I mean, challenges on any film set, there are challenges. Working with actors is challenging. I mean, most of them are divas. So, so when people say, "Oh, was it challenging?" I'm like, trust me, I've worked with actors who are actually challenging, who don't show up on set 5 hours late, who, don't show up for days. He was always on set on time, always knew what he was doing, wanted to be there. Yes, there was times he was tired, but he's a child. He's also a child, so, and then not just because he's autistic, but he is also a child. So, and you work differently with children on a set anyway. So, so of course schedules had to be changed to accommodate him. But like any actor, right? So it wasn't like challenges in the way of, but he was so wanting to do everything. I mean, he never so the biggest challenge I think would have to be he's never liked animals. So he's never ridden a horse, touched a horse, never had dogs, never had cats. And as you know in the film, he has a dog the whole time. And so 2 weeks before the filming, and that's actually my dog, and it's actually my son's dog, um, which my son's not the best with him, but he loves her and sorry her. Um, but he's just as I said, with touching and stuff, but he's got a lot better because of time and and getting comfortable. But with Nasser, we had to move in. The parents allowed the dog to live with them for 2 weeks before the shoot. And so all the five other kids were obsessed with Lassie, so they just loved her. And so over those 2 weeks, Nasser started to like get close to the dog and play with the dog. And as soon as we got into shooting, it was his dog. No one was allowed near the dog. So, so, so it was his dog, Lassie, and him. And it was actually quite hard when we had to finish shooting because it's my dog, so I had to take him home. And he really he misses the dog, and we do have play dates with the dog because it is like a big part of his life. So he did get attached, which was, as I said, from a boy that didn't like dogs to a boy that became his best friend on set. They were together all the time, and it really helped him having that dog, having Lassie with him. And with horses as well, he never horse rode. He doesn't horse ride in the film due to health and safety. We decided not to put him on the horse. He was meant to, but we decided not that he actually wanted to go on the horse. But we as a crew were like, actually, it's been a hard day. It's just he might want to get off. And we were like, let's just let him walk with the horse. But he as well started wanting, and he now horse rides. And actually, being around horses is really quite good for children on the spectrum. There's a lot of horse therapies that other families here, my friends' families who also have autistic children, they send their kids to horse riding, and it really helps them with being, connecting with nature, but really just calms them. And that's why we wanted to add the horses, because I've seen so much good that it's done for so many of the families here with these programs they have for children on the spectrum. So I wanted to keep that, and so I didn't cut that out, even though I mean it was a bit of a health and safety risk. So yeah.
So what does your son think of the film?
Well, he's seen it at every stage. Of course, they were a bit sad they couldn't be in the film because they have been in two of my other films, and this film they couldn't be in because it is all Emirati, so everyone had to be Emirati, and they're blonde and blue eyes. So there is no, and they don't speak Arabic. So in this film, they weren't in it, but they did come on set. He actually became friends with Nasser, so Nasser and him are quite good friends now. I mean, not good because they're a bit of an age difference, but they had a great time on set together. They hanged out together. But he's also seen the film in lots of different edits. So he's seen it without dialogue, without subtitles, without music, without color. So he's probably seen it like 25 times now. And he loves it. He watches it with me every time. So he's always keen to watch it with me, which is great to help me with my work. So yeah,
Now, you mentioned you moved from Australia to Abu Dhabi.
correct.
Now, I know for someone who is autistic, change is hard. How did your son handle that?
So my son was actually born in Saudi Arabia.
Mm.
So he wasn't born in Australia. We were living in Saudi Arabia before we moved to Abu Dhabi. And so for him, with as a child, we noticed we always had to prepare him for everything, like with haircuts, like 2 weeks before we had a haircut. That was always the big challenge. I mean, he's got better now. I have to tell him a couple of days before. He still doesn't like his haircut, but he
Mhm.
sits through it now. But it took quite a few years to get him to do that. But the change with like flying when we travel, we're always preparing him like a week or two in advance, and we're always reading books about where we're going, showing him videos about where we're going. So he's already kind of imagining and preparing himself. Before we moved to Abu Dhabi, we actually visited it twice for a week on holidays. So we started to know the neighborhood, started to see the house, started to see where we were moving. So just kind of prepared him, so he understood that. But for him, it's always, I think what he's learned the most, which has always kept him grounded, or it's me and my husband being there. So I think as the change, he's trusts the change if we're around with the change. And I think that's the one thing I taught him from a young age. And he trusts that the change is something we need to do. And so it took a time to kind of teach that to him, or so that he understood it. But now, I mean, and he got it quite quick. By 4 or 5 years of age, he then started to understand. So when we do go on holidays, I mean, we're preparing with videos and books and stuff like that, but and less so now because he's much older now. But I think he also he's it's as long as mommy and daddy are there, and then that's healthy and that's right. And so the trust, I mean, that's the most important thing, that the children trust you, and that respect is there within the family. And I think the children that I see for other friends of mine who have children on the spectrum, I think the ones that, are the ones that can achieve anything and do everything is their families are so committed in, being families, and really listening to the child and learning what they need, and incorporating that, so that becomes, and then the child then feels really safe. So I think that's the most important thing. I think there's an expectancy that children should feel safe because their
Mhm.
parents, but actually, that's unfair. Just because your parents doesn't mean your child shouldn't feel safe. Your child needs to believe it, and you do need to prove yourself as a parent as well, that you're a good parent, I think, to your children. Yeah,
Now, what is it like raising an autistic son?
brilliant. I mean, as in like it's as I said, I think for me, he was quite a fast-paced person, and I traveled a lot in my youth and lived in many countries. Um, just to when, as I said, as I said, because he sees the world so differently for me, and also for me as a filmmaker and as a creative, it's really great. Like we're now, like he's really into video games. So my next project I'm doing has a video game aspect, but he knows so much about video games. But he knows like the way he sees the world, the way, and I'm like, I could never get that by reading it on the internet. It's such a different so it is such a blessing for me as a mother, but as a filmmaker as well, to have my son because of the way emotions, I mean, I've learned about touch, I've learned about sense of sight, smell, on such a deeper level. Um, taking time, moving back, resetting, like sometimes like the things I've had to kind of think differently on how I would normally do things actually for me has been so beneficial in the way I proceed in my work life. It's really helped me as a filmmaker and as a career woman. But so yes, in that sense, I would say um, yeah, and also for my other for his siblings as well. Their relationship is so special as well. His younger brother like protects him. He's such a like adores him. Is just such a pro max, which I absolutely love. And there's such a beautiful relationship there. That I'm yeah. So I'm so glad that yeah the dynamics work.
Now, has he made any friends?
Yeah, so actually we had some issues for a while. I mean, he had friends, he's got friends that are like in our circle of friendship circle, like our groups that we hang out with. But at school, he had quite difficulties. So we actually did take him out of school for 2 years and he was homeschooled because there was a time in his life where we really needed to focus on helping him learn life skills and how to like,
Hmm.
to go back into the system. And then thankfully, since he's been back in the system, the school's been fantastic about putting him into a classroom with other gifted kids. So they've actually got like, I think there's probably like 8 boys now in that class, and 4 of them are actually quite similar to Max. So they really have the same kind of way of playing and conversations. At the same time, there are other kids and in that classroom who the teacher is who are more sensitive and aware of their needs. And so it works really nicely. So there's none of that bullying anymore, and which did exist when before we took him out of school. Um, so yeah, I mean, and I can see now that he's got his really close friends. He's got 3 boys that is, and I'm so thankful for that because that's changed him and his personality and really made him stable at school. Yeah.
No, I want to say though, you, I want to thank you for teaching your son life skills because that's one of the things in my book I talk about is that there's going to come a time when your parents are going to be gone and you need these life skills. You need to learn how to talk to a doctor. You need to learn how to talk to people, how to balance a checkbook. Because if you don't have these skills and you're autistic, you're going to struggle in life. And thank
Exactly.
you so much for teaching your son these skills. As
Yeah.
time goes on, he can use these skills as he gets older in life, and so he doesn't have to go back to you and your husband to say, "Hey, how do I do this?"
Exactly. I mean, because it's the way it's also processes, like things that we might find well, because the world's been made for people that are neurotypical, sadly. And so systems and processes in society are made for neurotypical people. So it's for him to understand, okay, yes, so what does that mean? Why does that work that way? So that he can understand the process because it's different to the way he would do it or how he would do it. But sadly, you got everyone catches a train a certain way, everyone buys tickets a certain way. You go to the government office, you have to, apply for applications a certain way. So, and just it took some time for him to understand why it has to be done this way, not that way. And so that he can, and then it becomes a process in his mind that that's just the way to do it. And it's not that it's the right way. And if you can figure out, and I'm always like, if you can figure out a better way, for these and like as I said, he loves spaceships and he's building, and I'm sure he's gonna, he's like, no, we should build it this way. Then maybe we're wrong. We're probably wrong. Our processes are probably wrong.
Mhm.
So work on that, and then maybe hopefully one day we can fix those processes that are better suited for a bigger variety of people on this earth, or not just one type of person. So yeah, life skills are super important. That was a big part which we really needed to help him with. But now, as I said, since he's gone back to school, he's really able to do everything he needs to do.
How's he handling school?
He love, as I say, because he's got these three friends, and they have similar interests, similar way of speaking and analyzing the world, and so that he loves, and he's got his favorite subjects, which are the subjects his brain loves, and we know what they are. We've done all his tests, so but he's like he's bored, like he doesn't like probably 6 of the 10 classes he has a day
Hmm.
does find it too much. He's very tired. He has been recently saying it's just too many classes in one day. I can't keep up, and that's been quite sad. I'm like, look, don't worry. Like if you can't keep, and the teacher's aware that, and they know like he doesn't have to stress about it, but he does, of course, because and I'm like, look, he's learning just to let it go. If you don't finish, you don't finish. If you, he tops the year in maths, like he's the smartest in his year in maths, but he can't do, a simple, that he can't do when he can't finish. Um, and the school's trying and they're doing quite well, but as we said, it's made for neurotypical kids. And so there's just a lot of, uh, yeah, so we are working with the school and trying to see how to better assist him. We're looking at maybe changing him to using a laptop in school instead of writing. So we're looking at maybe different alternatives coming in the new year. But at the same time, he wants to go to school now. Before he didn't, now he does want to go to school because he does have a great teacher. He's got a few teachers he really loves, and they've really kind of and he also has these great friends. So, and he gets to, and the projects he gets to work on, they do allow him to do the projects he likes sometimes. So he gets super excited about those things. And so it's a battle. It depends on the week. It depends on the day. But sadly, he's got to go to school, and that's like we're just gonna have to work it out.
I think one of the most important things school is going to teach him, especially because he's autistic, is socialization skills. I mean, that any kid needs, but especially when you're autistic, because socializing comes so hard at times.
Yeah. And it does, I mean, exactly. And so I mean, it took him a while to make these friends. And as I said, when we do get new people in the house, or he's never met people, even if I prepare him still, like if I tell them who they are and we try to do that, and it does take him, he does hide for a while and it takes him a while to come out. But once he does, no one notices it. Because once he's confident and comfortable and he's learned and he's trusting you, it's, and that's what, and that was another thing, which I wanted to make this film because there was a time and I had a comment actually at one of the festivals we went to, and a reporter came out actually, and it was quite offensive, but at the same time, I was like, you know what? And he was like, you know what? It was just such a great film, but I just don't think he was autistic enough.
What?
And I was, yeah, and I was like, what do you mean? He was like, well, I didn't like, he didn't seem autistic. I was like, well, what is, because I've had that told about my son when people, and I'm like, again, what do you think is autistic? And like, and that's the point. Like, I really, afterwards, I was like, we've done I was like, no, he's on the spectrum higher than my son actually. And, he's just an amazing human being. And that just shows it also shows how badly you've learned about autism. It just shows how,
Mhm.
uneducated you are about
Mhm.
autism. To say that and to be a reporter and say that was like, what, so you wanted him, what, to be Rain Man? Like, I'm like, I mean, he was being himself, and that's good. That's actually that's the representation we need, not actors trying to overact something that's not necessary. So I think that's one of the things that I was really happy that the boy that we found, he was him, and he is autistic and he played himself. And if people are having a problem with that he's not autistic enough, means you need to educate yourself a little bit more about the different spectrum, and actually be aware and understand that, what it actually means. And so I think he then went going, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I was like, I was like, yeah, you shouldn't have said that.
No, you had every right to say that because what 90% of the world doesn't realize is there's two sides to us. What they
Yes,
see is one side. What I think what this reporter is expecting is almost what you see when you look at someone who's got Downs. They're looking at some to see some kind of physical thing, or like you said, like
exactly.
Rain Man, or someone more level three autism than
Almost
than
got
level
Tetris
one.
or yeah, someone's got like some, screaming disorder or I mean like because I mean that's what I was like, what do you want him to be running around and like I mean, like and I was like, that is not the film either because he is emotional, he's sensitive. Like so that's him and that's
Mhm.
important to also see and to be aware of. Yeah. So you're right, correct, exactly.
I mean, people don't realize it that it's called an invisible disability for a reason. It's a mental development. It's not a
Yes,
physical one.
exactly, exactly. So, and it's been hidden, for so long in the past, and it hasn't, people used to not understand it and hide. And I know that because my cousin was hidden, as a child. I didn't even know I had a cousin with autism until, and that's because of, I guess the olden days and the way it was seen. Um, and it's so sad. And I mean, now to see that people are actually, it is important to be inclusive because people understand that, it is an invisible disease, a condition, but it's there, and therefore it needs to be understood so that, we have a better understanding of life and how to live on this earth. Yeah, from more perspectives of life.
Now, does your son have any sensory issues?
Yeah, so he's got a few. I mean, he's got, as I said, when we had those 2 years outside of school, we did a lot where we were, so he's a lot better. Like he won't like it for a second, but then he knows because we're doing it. And so he's learned to, and then he kind of eases into it. And that's also his processing is slower. So it just takes him a while to process. And once he's processed it, and that's because of his, brain development. And so we're working on that's getting faster, but it's not something that's going to change because we know that's genetic. Um, but again, I think he's got people that are cue points for him of safety, security, because he
Mhm.
trusts. He knows now to look, to see, to feel, okay, I've got to process that this is safe. And but yeah, like even with the mountain boy, there were like times where like, oh no, like, he'd be on top of a mountain and we're like, because he has different, awarenesses and um knowing and every child is different who's on the spectrum. So we're always with the mother, what can he do? What can't he do? Please, because we need to understand what his limits are and where he might seem like he's being confident, but actually he can't do it. So because um, but again, you just have to communicate really well with uh friends, families, and children on the spectrum, and listen to when they're telling you something or what they're telling you and understand it so you know how to communicate and have a relationship together.
Now, what are some of the challenges you faced of raising your son?
Not so much challenges because as I say I don't see it as a challenge. As I said, we've always seen it as a blessing and never uh I'd never seen there was more hurtful times. There was one time during COVID, I remember just before we took him out of school. And there was, the kids coming online, and my son went online, and another girl went online, and they weren't on mute, the family. It was just us, and the girl started saying stuff about my son, and then they realized that we had heard everything, and my son heard it. And I said, okay, sorry, and I just turned off the screen. And that really hurt me because he heard it. It's more when, I really try to protect him that he doesn't ever hear or know. He doesn't know, he never knows that he's in it. He doesn't need to because he knows his processes, he knows how to survive. And like when he got bullied and when I didn't know he was being bullied, that was quite hard because he falls over and he gets bruises sometimes. So for me, I just expected it that it was him, running into a wall or something, and then finding out that he's being bullied physically, and then not being aware, and him being scared to tell me because he's going to get bullied more, even though he tells me everything. As a mother, you do kind of hate yourself for it because you feel like you're so close. And he now knows that, he does know to tell me everything. So again, because we've learned how to deal with bullies and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's more that when those kind of moments have been challenging because I haven't been able to protect him or haven't been able to prepare him for those scenarios because I haven't also made him aware that, because one of the reasons was that he hugged people. He needed the squashy hugs. And when I wasn't around, he found people he did it to, and some people didn't like it. And of course, I understand that, but also he needs it, and they need it too, and they just haven't learned to deal with it. So it was, it was just those kind of little things like that, I think, were more challenging than anything with him. I mean, yes, feeding him, I mean, was a bit of a challenge at times. That's quite common. And we just learned to deal with it and we learned how to feed him. And we learned and then he eats really well now. Like he's a great eater. It took some time, but he's a fantastic eater now. Yeah, at 10 years of age. Because he communicates now. We communicate, we understand our limits, but he had to learn to communicate to us and trust us and vice versa. And I mean, yes, it took time, but it wasn't a challenge. I wouldn't see it as a challenge. I'd say that's parenting. That's what I got into. I became a mother to be a mother, and whatever that means, that's being a mother, right? I mean, uh, um, yeah, so I guess that would be that.
What are some of the joys of raising him?
Oh my God. It's just, he's just so, he is my little boy. Like, I mean, I'm his mother. Like, I feel it. Like, I know how much he loves me. And again, he doesn't show it in the way that, a normal, but because I know he trusts me and like there's just like that there's like an understanding between us that it's just yeah, I think that is the biggest joy of that we have that relationship and that someone does trust me and I'm that I trust him like because he has taught me so much that I stop and I'm like, okay, that's how Max would see it, that's how Max wants it, okay, that's and yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, so many. It's, yeah, every day is like even tonight, my husband's not here. So whenever my husband travels, he sleeps in my bed. He always wants to sleep in my bed. And it's just, and like he's 10 and I love it. And I'm like, it's like I'm mummy, I think, yeah. So yeah.
Has he found his special interest yet?
Yes. So he loves go-karting. And that was something I got him into very young because of when we started noticing processes and repetition. In a go-kart, you have to go round and round in circles, and he
Hmm.
learns things very quickly. And he likes repetition, like he loves Lego. So it was and it's physically it keeps him fit. And I needed something that he would keep him fit and that he would do and he could do for, loves it. He can do it for hours. But it keeps him very fit. And so we started as like more of him helping with these processes to learn faster processing. So like a way just to, being able to brake faster, turn faster, learning these things. And then he just fell in love with it. And now it's like his thing. Um, he's probably not going to be a professional Formula One driver or anything like that, but it's definitely because it's probably not the sport we want him to be in, but it definitely has helped him with confidence and um yeah, like I mean, he knows everything about it and he just loves it. So that's he's never going to play football. He's never going to play those sports. He doesn't have the coordination. So we realized that quite young, that was not his sport. So really try to look for a sport that he would still get the fitness and the technical, but also be part of a team and learn sportsmanship and that kind of stuff. So we kind of that was the one he kind of we tried a few sports, we tried like quite a bit, but that one kind of stuck with him and that's become his hobby. I wish it was football. I wish he had liked football. It's been a lot easier, but it's definitely not football. So
When you say football, you're talking European football, right?
I'm
Soccer?
talking about soccer. Yeah, I'm talking about soccer. Yeah, yeah. So it just it was definitely not the sport for him. But we tried and we tried many other things. Uh, but yeah, that was the one that like, and as I said, because of the way he thinks, it really we when we got him in, we're like, oh, this works for his brain, which is really interesting.
What was it like to win Best Choreography and Best Young Actor for The Mountain Boy?
Well, it was well, as I said, that was the first time Nasser had won an award. So we've won for the film Best Feature, we've won Best Cinematography at other festivals, but we had never won anything for him. So it was just like I was hoping we'd get one, and now we've won two awards. He's won two awards. So for him and his family, and also for the country, for the region, to have an Emirati boy win in America. And in South America, we won an award as well for Best Young Actor. I think they're really proud, to show that, and a boy that's on the spectrum, it just was not expected. They never thought that this film would leave the country, let alone win awards internationally,
Mhm.
and that is because it's no one's ever done it before. And now they're like, wow, what's he doing next? So we are working on another project. We are trying to, get him more acting roles here. We're looking at different film productions for him because he really is a great actor and that's what he wants to do. That is his passion now. Like my son likes go-karting, he loves acting. So we're really trying to help him get into another film and get into some more productions and hopefully he'll win Best Actor in many projects to come.
Now, what was the writing process like for you to write The Mountain Boy? I know you based it off of the books, but what was it like for you to adapt those books into something live?
So, I mean, for me, so the dog, so again, the book doesn't have a dog. There's
Mhm.
no dog in the book. There's also the story of the pearl. There's like a through line in the film where he's finding his mother and the mother's story that doesn't exist in the book. So when like the book really was basically one scene in the film. So when I talked with the author, I'm like, look, we're gonna have to turn it into a feature film. So we do have to develop it. And so we kind of took ideas from history from that time period because she knows that time period really well because she's an archaeologist.
Mm.
Also from our children's experiences. So my son, when we got the dog, for us, he wasn't a dog boy either, and that's why we got the dog. We got a rescue dog, so he would learn to take care of something, whether it's something that was vulnerable that, was rescued. And it took him a while, but I saw how it helped him and how it helps him, especially when we have people over. So I really wanted to put a dog in the film for that reason, so that there was another from my experience with my son. So we kind of incorporated a few different elements. And then we also wanted a bit of a love story in there just because of the real Sahel. We wanted to like give hope that someone on the spectrum will find love and get married in the future and and has a happy ending, like in other films. And which Nasser and my son and many people on the spectrum do have. So we kind of wanted to incorporate that kind of into that story that that there is people that connect and think this way and you can have relations. So anyway, there's a bit of that was never in the book story, but we wanted, specifically for Michelle and her son, I wanted to kind of give like some hope and for a better world and a better future. And then also we did a lot, I thought, just because there's a lot going on with climate change. And because he's so aware on like weather, we wanted to add more stuff about the importance of being aware of saving nature. And so we kind of added those kind of themes into the film. And then we made a feature film. So yeah, we kind of dabbled a bit more and we made a feature. But then, as I said, we did cut a lot of it out when we were filming. And, so, and then it became something else and something beautiful. And that's filmmaking.
Now, what was it like to see your film in the finished form up on the big screen?
Phenomenal. I mean, a film like this normally would never be seen on the big screen because it is a local Emirati film. So usually something like this would go to TV, you'd never see it in the cinema. And I come from a cinema background, so and I was one of the things I wanted. I was like, no, I want the autistic boy to be in the cinema, to go to the cinema, to see himself in the cinema. That not just, that, an autistic child is able to be in a film that is cinema worthy. And the film is stunning and he's stunning. And when he came to the premiere, and as well, the boy that the film's based on, he came to the premiere, he loved the film. Nasser loved the film. I mean, we've got shots of him so excited. That's me, like it was exciting for him to see the film. And I think that for the crew and the cast who were there were like, wow, such a, that was a moment for all of us, that we did it. So yeah, that was really special.
Now, do you have any advice for anyone out there listening?
For filmmakers, I think it's
Filmmakers, anyone who's
for film,
autistic who wants to get into filmmaking, anyone who wants to get
okay.
into acting.
For filmmakers, I would say make sure your stories are authentic and honest. And even if people say you can't do this or you shouldn't have an actor like this, or if that's the right thing for the story, then that's what the right thing is, and you have to stick with it. And it's going to take time, but it does happen. Because I took me 4 years to get this film off the ground, by the way. But I stuck to my guns and I was like, no, I'm going to do it with a boy and I'm going to do it this way. For people on the spectrum who want to become actors, be in the film industry, yes, go for it. Attend courses, do it. Like, don't be, I mean, yes, maybe it's not the norm, but that's great. Like, I think people in these courses are aware now. I mean, there's an acting school in New York that I just visited when I was there, the Atlantic Acting School, and they've started doing courses with people on the spectrum. They've done a theater play just recently with like a production with everyone who was on the spectrum. So now they're including in their courses and teaching, and it's fantastic what they're doing. And they're realizing, wow, people are coming to the theater, watching, they're getting like, so just yes, there is a place for you. And if it doesn't feel like it, because yes, there are probably production houses and places that don't feel like they're inclusive, but then there are many others that are. So just make sure to be around those, make friends with those. I mean, don't waste time on the people that, I mean, that's what I've learned. Ignore them, And for mothers, um, give opportunities to don't like as I said, like this mother who brought Nasser to this film, and all the mothers who brought their children to audition for the film, even if they didn't think, they still came to the audition. They gave the child the opportunity. They allowed the child to experience that process. And then when they got the part, they didn't say he can't do it. They're like, we're going to figure out a way to help him do it. Yes, because yeah, 35 days. It's a 90-page screenplay. He had a lot of lines, quite difficult. But okay, we're gonna work out how he can make it. No, there's no. He wants to do it. We're gonna do it. And I think that's the biggest, to expose them to opportunities. And if they want to do them, you have to figure out a way to help them have that experience. If they don't want to do it, then they don't. But I definitely feel you've got to feel that they can do it, because they can if they want to. So yeah.
And finally, where can people find out more about you and the movie Mountain Boy?
So we have my name's Nancy Paton, and I have a website, and I've got a company called Desert Rose Films, which is part of Mountain Boy, which has a website, mountainboymovie.com. We have a Instagram, Mountain Boy Movie. We are just finishing our film festival circuit, so we've got another 2 months of festivals. And then we'll be releasing the film in the Middle East in theaters officially just before Autism Awareness Month, so the beginning of March, so it can continue during Autism Awareness Month. And then we should head into streamers around that time, ideally internationally as well. Currently, we've just got this local distribution, but we will be updating everything on our social media as soon as we get international distribution. And we have had a great reception in America. Thankfully, so many festivals have really loved the film. So many audiences in America having really, so we really thank that. And the audience and the distributors in America seeing actually the audiences are liking it at festivals. So we're getting some traction. So hopefully we'll release it in America as well.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Nancy Paton, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Reed. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed that.
It was very much a pleasure talking to you. See you next
Yes.
time, everyone.